Top 10 most powerful elven warriors of all ages. Hello my lovelies. Today let us talk about the highest ranked elven warriors of all time. It was hard to cut it down to 10 looking at all the ages of the world. I think one thing about most of my picks stands out though. 8 out of the 10 were born in the Undying Lands and therefore were by birth alone more powerful than most other elves born in Middle-earth. Being born under the light of the two trees that illuminated the world before the sun and the moon even existed gave these elves a special power. Tolkien does not give a metaphysical reason what that exactly means. It is not that all of them grew taller, wiser, or more powerful per se. He stays vague what being born under the light of the trees actually means. But we have various quotes regarding our heroes that confirm they stood out from other elves. Talking about the specific 8, I will explain that extra bit of power. And please note, this is my personal view who the most powerful elves were, and it is perfectly fine if you disagree or would rank them differently. And as a last thing before we start the ranking, I define power not just by pure strength in battle, but the overall capabilities in winning a battle. And this is not about who the elf of all elves is, because Tolkien himself told us who those two are. The greatest elf, or as I would say the one with the greatest potential, is obviously Fëanor. Tolkien himself confirms this more than once, and just after him comes Galadriel. But again, this is more power and effective in battle related. See it as who would win a fight against Sauron or a Balrog. But before we start, I would appreciate if you can leave a like and a comment, as this helps out the channel immensely. Thank you very much. So, with that out of the way, let's start. My number 10 pick is Thranduil. The king of the woodland realm in Mirkwood is the son of another powerful elven king, King Orofer. Thranduil is one of the elves, though, that did not see the light of the two trees, as he was most likely born in Doriath in the realm of King Thingol. My guess is they were also somewhat related, so by birth he is from the royal line of the Teleri elves. He proved his fighting capabilities in the War of the Last Alliance, where he fought with his father and their army of Greenwood and Sylvan elves, Thranduil being a Sylvan elf himself. Both clans accounted amongst the Teleri elven clan. The third and largest house of the elves are per se not known to be warriors. They were rather fond of nature, the sea and music. You get the idea. Still, the Sylvan elves of Doriath knew how to fight, and I guess Orofer as well as Thranduil brought that knowledge to Greenwood when they founded the kingdom. The kingdom of Thranduil and his father lasted all throughout the Second and Third Age and still existed in the Fourth Age. It was never a peaceful realm. The kingdom was haunted from its beginning days in the Second Age by evil creatures that roamed the lands, as well as ongoing orc attacks, and later even by Sauron, aka the Necromancer himself. The fact alone that Thranduil, who most likely fought on the front line with his father in the War of the Last Alliance, made it out alive, speaks for his fighting capabilities. The Battle of Dagorlad in 3434 Second Age was a catastrophic event for the Woodland Realms armies. Thranduil lost his father and at least 2/3 of his people in this battle. As far as we know, his weapon was a sword, sadly unnamed. The whole Hobbit movie elk thing, or whatever that was, is completely fan fiction. But the fact they were a woodland realm, I'd say they had no real cavalry and were mainly marching on foot. Thranduil leading his army in battle of the first armies. And again, the movie version is not correct. The three armies of dwarves and men and elves never fought each other. Thranduil led approximately an army of 10,000 elven warriors. They were aided by 7,000 dwarves and 3,000 men from Lake Town, and they stood against 40,000 orcs from Dol Guldur and Gundabad, plus wargs and bats. So again, it's not hard to guess what a great leader, great general and warrior Thranduil had been. He continued to fight and win battles in the Third Age during the wars with Sauron and aided Lothlorien and Galadriel in keeping Sauron's forces coming from the east and north at bay. He survived all the ages and all the battles, most likely fighting on the front lines, so he is a worthy number 10 pick, I'd say. Number 9 is Medros, eldest son of Fëanor, who, yes, spoiler, will also show up here. Medros, just like his 6 younger brothers, was born in the Undying Lands under the light of the 2 trees, and he's actually one of those characters I mentioned before. He was also named the Tall, which gives away in a very Tolkien manner that he was in fact very powerful by his physique alone. Being of the Noldor, he was by nature a born warrior and he became a renowned swordsman. Again, his sword is sadly not named, but the Noldor and especially the royal house of Finwë, due to Morgoth's treachery, started gearing up, forging armor and weapons and trained for battle, which is a weird thing knowing they lived in the Undying Lands where no war was ever fought and no one was ever killed, well till Medros' grandfather, the High King of the Noldor, was killed by Morgoth. What we do know of his skills in battle is that he was amongst the best swordsmen, and he must have proven himself in the first kinslaying in Alqualondë, where he definitely took part, and my guess is had a big role as Fëanor's eldest son. We have no account of what exactly happened, but it is clear by his deeds he fell under the doom of Mundos. He redeemed himself partly, not aiding in burning the ships, so that the host of Fingolfin could no longer cross the sea. Being a swordsman and a warrior, there is probably nothing worse that can happen to you than losing your sword hand. But that is exactly what happened to Fëanor's eldest. Shout out to Jaime Lannister, by the way, who shares a lot of traits with Medros, just saying. After the unexpected death of his father, who was killed by multiple Balrogs, Melkor captured Medros, and the elf experienced his own Prometheus moment, tortured by the Dark Lord and hanging by his wrist at the Dagorlad mountain. His cousin and best friend Fingon, with the help of the Lord of the Eagles, Thranduil, finally freed the elf at the cost of his sword arm that had to be cut off to free him from his chains. This is what Tolkien tells us about his miraculous recovery and capabilities. There Medros in time was healed, for the fire of life was hot within him, and his strength was of the ancient world, such as those possessed who were nurtured in Valinor. His body recovered from his torment and became hell, but the shadow of his pain was in his heart, and he lived to wield his sword with left hand more deadly than his right had been. It is clear only an elf of Medros' willpower and strength, but also being from the Undying Lands, is what made him an even deadlier warrior than before. The elf prince founded a new Noldor-ruled realm in the east to strengthen the borders and protect the lands from Morgoth's fortress in the north. He fought in the Dagor-Aglareb, the third great battle of the First Age. Together with Fingolfin's forces, the elves for the first time managed to completely crush the Dark Lord's forces and drive them out of their lands. He fought through many more battles of the First Age, and although the Noldor partly were defeated and even betrayed by men, Medros survived. I would say he must have been amongst the top 3 swordsmen that ever fought in a war, as well as a great commander, as he was amongst those that fought literally every war in the First Age, and that people with only one arm left. My number 8 pick is Gil-galad, last High King of the Noldor elves in Middle-earth, and the descendant from either Fingon or Orodreth. The Silmarillion version is he is Fingon's son, later notes say he is Orodreth's son, which would either make him a descendant of Fingolfin's or Finarfin's line. I personally find the Fingon and Silmarillion version more appealing, but again, none of this is canon. Why is it important? I think most of our great Noldorian warriors stem from Fingolfin's line, as he himself was said to have been the brother with the greatest physical strength out of all the Noldor princes, and he might appear in my list. He is the second one from our list that was not born in the Undying Lands, but in Middle-earth. He ruled over the kingdom of Lindon in the Second Age. Most of his people were Noldor, but also Sindar elves from Beleriand that were refugees in his kingdom after half the continent had drowned after the War of Wrath that ended the First Age. Gil-galad was said to be tall of stature and a great warrior that had seen many battles even before his greatest one, the Battle of the Last Alliance. His main weapon was the spear Eglos, a unique weapon for elves, as mostly imagine them using bow and arrow or swords. Eglos means snow point, and it was said to have been a deadly weapon, feared amongst all enemies of the elves. Side note, I love how weapons become legends, and the orcs basically shit themselves when anyone mentions them. I guess he must also have been a skilled horseman, as that would go well with him using a spear. Obviously, his fighting technique must have been unique, mainly using the spear. But he was over 3,000 years old. He had time to develop a deadly throw. Talking about his power, we obviously have to mention he held from 1603, Second Age on, one of the 3 elven rings. He was given Vilja and Narja, but only kept Vilja for a while till the year 1697, when he gave it to Elrond to strengthen his ally in founding Rivendell and fighting off Sauron's attacks. So I wouldn't say the ring had much influence on his power. Gil-galad's greatest deed was leading the armies of the Last Alliance against Sauron at the end of the Second Age. He had proven to be a wise ruler and commander beforehand. He was responsible for the alliance with the Númenórean, the strongest army of the Second Age, and therefore was able to keep Sauron at bay for the greater part of the Second Age. His greatest moment and victory was sadly also the moment of his death. He was 3,581 years old when the last High King of the Noldor died in battle with Sauron himself. Gil-galad had laid siege to Barad-dûr for 7 years, and finally the Dark Lord emerged from his fortress and fought Elendil and the Elven King in single combat. The Noldor and the elves managed to wound Sauron multiple times, to a point he was thrown down. Obviously, a Maiar like Sauron can't be killed, but only the 2 most skilled warriors must have been able to wound and throw down some of the most powerful Maiar beings in the world. And Sauron was also wearing the ring, the Dark Lord being at the height of his power, basically. Finally, the Elf King died though. Isildur remembered he died from the heat of Sauron's hand. I guess he also died from his wounds inflicted by the Dark Lord. What an epic death, if you ask me. Number 7 is Fëanor himself, and yes, I did not rank him higher talking about strength and power and not overall role in the Legendarium. As stated before, I know Tolkien said he was the greatest elf, but he was not the greatest warrior. Still, he fought at least one epic fight, and that makes him my number 7. Before arriving in Middle-earth and battling Balrogs, Fëanor fought in the first kinslaying, acting as the new High King of all Noldor. After his father's death, he had his people geared up, trained for battle, and finally fought the first battle. Sadly, it was against elves and not the enemies. As it was the Noldor's first real battle, Fëanor fought on the front line with his people, and we know they killed at least 1/3 of the Teleri elves of Alqualund. I found it hard to judge his fighting abilities in this battle, so let's continue. Arriving in Middle-earth, he fought his second and actually final battle, the Battle Under the Stars, or Dagor-nui-Giliath. His weapon was the sword, again not a named one sadly. Winning the first battle of Middle-earth with his host, Fëanor didn't have enough and hounded the fleeing forces of Morgoth to the gate of Angband. Almost no one could follow their king, and so at one point he stood alone against Balrogs. We have no number of how many, but as it were according to later notes only 7 Balrogs in total. I guess he stood against at least 2 plus the incoming Lord of Balrogs, Gothmog. By the way, I do have a dedicated Gothmog video if you're interested. He did not manage to kill a Balrog in the end, no. But imagine fighting off multiple fire demons from hell. alone with your sword. And he did stand for a while until Gothmog finally got him. He died going up in flames, quite symbolic for his deeds and his life if you ask me. And although he has not always done the right thing, well, mostly never, he was a great warrior of his time and might have had many more victories against the forces of evil, if not for his early death in the First Age. Following my number 7, my number 6 pick is the first and sadly only woman on this list. And again, some might disagree. As I said, we're talking battle power here, but Galadriel was in fact described as physically strong. Don't let her portrayal in the Lord of the Ring movies deceive you. She was described as being exceptionally tall and strong for an elf, and growing up her mother gave her the name Nerven, which translates to man-maiden. She was willful and I would say even a bit arrogant, and she was the granddaughter of a king of all elves, and her wish to rule over kingdoms of her own matches her physical abilities. Tolkien did not mention she did partake in any of the wars of Middle-earth in the First Age. That obviously doesn't mean she didn't. 2 powers could be added to her own abilities given to her by birth. She learned to use magic from her relative and wife of the king of Doriath, Melian the Maiar, and she was also one of the wielders of one of the elven rings of power. She held the ring Nenya, the wide ring of adamant, given to her by her relative and the forger of the rings, Celebrimbor, in the Second Age. The ring and her knowledge of magic definitely added to her strength and did in fact win her battles. Though her magic and the power of the ring, she could even guard her kingdom of Lorien against attacks of the enemies, and only Sauron himself would have been able to enter her lands, it is said. But back to her battle powers. She in fact did partake in physical fights in the Third Age. In 2941, she and the members of the White Council did attack Dol Guldur, where Sauron was regaining his strength, disguised as the Necromancer. We don't know how the fight went down. Sauron was driven out again. A Maiar spirit can't be killed, even if he was weakened at that time. But I guess Galadriel, Gandalf and Saruman were the driving forces in the battle, and I guess Sauron did not stand alone. So I guess she did not fight with a sword alone, although I'm 100% sure she was capable of that. But she used her powerful magic to drive back and kill Sauron's minions and the Dark Lord himself. She even brought down the walls and the whole fortress in the Third Age, again, obviously not with her own hands. But power is power, and I think we will see this version of Galadriel in the upcoming Lord of the Rings show, being an elven warrior in times of need, as well as being a lady reigning a kingdom in her own right. My number 5 to 1 picks will be the second part to this video and released within a week's time. Till then, bye bye my lovelies, till the next one.